sir? Good. Good to see you. Good job, David. That's a good version of that song.
Good morning.
Good morning.
It certainly is a good morning, especially after Tennessee beating Kentucky in basketball. My name's Eddie Chen, and I'm president of the congregation, and it's my honor to welcome you here on behalf of the board and the program council. You're welcome here, whoever you are, wherever you're from, and wherever you are on your journey. If some of you here would like to learn a little bit more about our church, TVUUC, there's a visitor information card that's located in the back seat pocket or the pew in front of you, and you fill it out, drop it off in the collection basket in the back of the sanctuary, or hand it to one of the ushers. Someone will be in touch with you real soon. And for those of you viewing online, wherever you are, you can also go to the church website at tvuuc.org and sign up for the virtual visitor card, and someone will be in touch with you also. As we move forward together, please remember that we are each other's keepers. If you or your family are interested in our religious exploration program, you can find out all sorts of information in the table set up in the lobby. I think Miriam is manning that today. You could also check out our website at tvuuc.org for any kind of updated information on this year's programs and any resources that we have. Then let's see, we've got a couple of announcements. Chloe, you want to do yours first?
Just wanted to remind you all, I'm Chloe Aroldi Waters. That's not what I really wanted to remind you of. But the Alliance book sale is Saturday, 8 to 2. So bring your books. And more than that, on Thursday and Friday, come help us sort. It's really fun. And I just wanted to also let you know that Thursday night, No Beginning Tai Chi because we will have tables and books in that room. And also on Friday, laughter. Hopefully everyone that normally goes will be here helping sort. So no laughter Friday. Thank you.
Thank you, Gloria. Now we have an announcement from Leslie.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Leslie Jenkozian, and this year I am your rummage sale chair. Thank you. So last week when I was here, I made an announcement about the need for kitchen managers, and we do have an evening manager now who will come in every night and button us up and run the dishwasher. We could still use someone to commit to a daily check-in around the lunch hour, make sure that we have some healthy food, and maybe run to the grocery store for us if necessary. But the thing that I really wanted to talk about today is what happens in this room. If you've never been to one of our rummage sales, on Sunday, March 17th, we will clear this room. We will stack all the chairs, we'll move them out of the way, because this room is where we put our furniture, our luggage, our handbags, our art, our frames, and sporting goods and things like that. So if you can plan to be around for a little while on March 17th, help us clear this room, get it ready for setup, that would be great. And then after we're done on March 23rd, we need a crew to help clean the room and put it back together. So that's my ask for this week. I'll keep making newsletter announcements. My phone number and my email will be in each of those announcements, so it'll be really easy to find me. And I hope you're looking forward to Rummage 2024 as much as I am. Thank you. Woo.
Thank you, Leslie. Reminder here at 2 o'clock in the Lizzie room, that we're having a Q&A session on the bylaws that we'll be voting on February 25th. You can also access it via Zoom, and the link's on the church calendar. And then after the service, please join us on this joyous day for our 75th anniversary of this church of love and service. All the congregation members are invited, friends, visitors, anyone that's here is welcome to join us and partake in this joyous celebration. Now please silence your electronic devices as we enter into worship.
Good morning. Just a brief introduction to our musical meditation. I'm Rachel Kovac, and I was born into this congregation. Some of you know me because you helped raise me. Some of you know me because I hand you an order of service in the morning, and others of you are just visitors. When I was asked, the first song that came to mind when I think about growing up at TVUUC, immediately I knew it was Morning Has Broken. So I'm happy to celebrate this church this morning, singing with my parents. We will do the first verse of Morning Has Broken, and then we welcome you to join us for verses 2 and 3. It's number 38 in your great hymnal.
birthday, TVUUC. Our opening words come from Mary Frances Corner. We are grateful to mark time with seasons, to celebrate birthdays and anniversaries, to gather as family, to remember our loved ones. In all these seasons, may we give thanks for the breath of life, ever mindful of the fragile nature of existence. May we live fully in each moment. From summer to fall and winter to spring, we gather in mystery and in the bonds of a beloved community. May we radiate love both within and beyond these walls this day and all the days to come, caring for those we love and for those we have not yet met. Come, let us worship together. I invite you to rise and bow to your spirit for our chalice lighting song. Congregation's favorite hymns, hymn number 1 in the gray hymnal, May Nothing Evil Cross This Door.
It is good to be gathered here today in all the ways that we gather here in this room where so many are gathered, those who are watching from other spaces in this building or from home. It feels good on this 75th birthday celebration for this community. Some of us here today have had 75 birthdays already. Many of us have not yet. Many of us have been here in this church community for a long, long time, and many of us are new. I have a question. How many of us here this morning remember being new here? Maybe remember the very first time you came. How many of us here this morning have been here for so long, it feels to you that you do not remember the first time you came here? Who here does not remember your first time here? You're not sure? Yeah. Well, today in the service, we're going to hear from a number of folks who grew up in this community, and we also are going to hear from somebody who is growing up in this community right now. I wonder how many of us here are growing up in this church right now? I think a lot of us maybe, yeah. A lot of us may not be finished growing up yet, yeah. Well, Evan is my kid, or I'm his parent, and so he may actually have been in this church building more often than just about anybody else who's here over the time that we've been here, because he can't really get away from it. The kids of church staff members tend to be here a whole lot, right? So he and I had a conversation yesterday about some of his thoughts about what it's like being a kid in this community right now, and he has offered to share some of those thoughts with us this morning. So I'm going to turn it over to Evan.
One of my earliest memories at TVUUC is playing in the nursery a lot with Corey. We used to play hide the hammer, where one of us hid a toy hammer and other people needed to find it. Most of all, at TVUUC, I like all the people. Being able to connect with so many different people is very important to me. There are a lot of people that know me, and I know a lot of people, and I've built connections with a lot of them, which is pretty meaningful to me. I also really like the ping pong room because I really enjoy playing ping pong. I want grown-ups in the church to know that it is really fun to be a kid in the church. I'm really grateful that I'm able to be here. What I like most is all the RE spaces that really helped me learn and grow. Probably the most valuable thing I've learned at TVUUC is something I already sort of knew, but the church really helped me develop it. That it's really okay to just be myself and be who I am and do what I do. This year in Learning Lab, it's been a lot of fun. I've done a hand painting, and we did a stained glass pattern puzzle. We all colored the pieces, then put them together to make one stained glass. We also say the RE Covenant every week to remind us how to act together, and we share rose, thorn, and bud. A rose is something you're happy about, a bud is something you're looking forward to, and thorn is something you're not very happy about. I think we do it so that we can get to know what other people's days and lives have been like. One day, if I'm a grown-up talking about what it was like being a kid at TVUUC, I think I'll remember you. And I think I'll remember you and probably the friends I've made at the church, and I hope that people will remember about me that I really like learning and that I'm nice. I hope they think that. If someone was thinking about visiting the church and asked me what it was like, I'd say that it's a fun place and a safe, welcoming place to visit. It's just a very generous, welcoming place. Being Unitarian Universalist means that we're all equal. What matters to us is challenging racism and oppression wherever we find them, and the inherent worth and dignity of every person. Those are some of the most important values to me.
Thank you, Evan. And I suspect that all the young people who are here in this community would have some interesting things to tell us about what your experiences have been like here, as those of us who have been around a little longer do. And so I encourage you to talk with one another, share your memories and stories about being part of this community, and your ideas how we can make the next 75 years even better and better. So thank you all for being here this morning as we celebrate, and thank you, Evan. Woo. And now, our learners and leaders who are heading to our RE spaces are going to head out as we sing the recessional. Thank you.
morning we will be celebrating our birthday by hearing some words from people who grew up in the congregation. Unfortunately, our first speaker, Lauren Hulse, can't be here, but she sent these words. She said, "I'm sorry to have to miss the birthday party. This isn't the first and won't be the last birthday that COVID makes us miss. Happy birthday, TVUUC. I love you, and I'm looking forward to a lot more years of growing together." And we'll have a chance for her to tell her story on another occasion. And then next, Heather Kistner.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, and welcome to everyone here and to everyone watching the live stream. Joys and concerns for today include our very own Elnora Williams celebrated her 79th birthday on February 1st. Thank you, Elnora, for all your service through the years. Happy birthday, and thank you again. Mebby Jackson's Aunt Libba Wall passed away this past Sunday after a lingering bout with pneumonia. She was Mebby's mother's twin sister. We are sorry for her loss, and we hold Mebby and her family up to the light. Jamie Dobbs has shared some sad news. Her youngest brother, Greg Dobbs, passed away on January 10th after a fall. Greg grew up with Jamie and her brother John in Fort Worth, Texas. Following a tumor in infancy, he developed epilepsy and lived with Jamie's parents until he was 40. He then moved to Marbridge Ranch near Austin. Marbridge Ranch is a large residential community for people with disabilities. To honor his memory, Jamie is asking friends to watch the Obama family-produced documentary Crip Camp. I believe it's available on Netflix and may be available on other outlets as well. And now for a literal joy. Tony Powell was delirious with joy, those are her words, when she was wheeled into an operating suite at UT Medical Center on Friday for her long-awaited hip replacement surgery. Tony has been experiencing a great deal of pain for some time, but the surgery was first delayed due to a suspected infection in her hip joint. Infection was ruled out, and then it snowed. The successful surgery was performed on Friday, and it is likely she will be discharged soon. I think that deserves a hand. In recent days, we have been mourning the loss of two dear friends of this congregation, individuals whose lives were dedicated to the pursuit of social justice. Fran Ansley, a community organizer and retired professor from the UT College of Law, was a brilliant and tireless advocate for civil rights, for dignity and respect for immigrants, and for fairness to workers. She passed away in mid-January after a 2.5-year battle with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. And I'm going to add here, cancer sucks. She is survived by her husband, the Reverend Jim Sessions, who spoke from this pulpit a number of years ago, her son, Elijah, who lives in England, and her daughter, Lee, who also shows up for social justice causes in Knoxville. Todd Kramer, the husband of Ernie Hoskins, passed away on January 26th following a massive heart attack. He was president and owner of Johnstone Supply, as well as a leading founder in Knoxville Pride. He was also a board member of both Positively Living and the Community Coalition Against Human Trafficking. The week before he died, a friend posted this comment on his Facebook page, and I quote, "Thank you, Todd, for standing tall, for representing the less fortunate, for representing those who have been marginalized. You are a voice for those who are not heard. And now something that's on my phone. Hang on just a second. This is a late edition. This is from Trish Adams, and she lets us know that their joy this morning is that Chance's broken collarbone seems to be healing. He went without his arm sling all day yesterday and reports no pain. Woo-hoo. After his spine was irradiated so much, there was a chance that the ability to mend bones might be compromised. Well, apparently not completely. So, good, go Chance. Captain Chance. Yay. For these joys and concerns and those unspoken, we hold everyone up to the light. Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Heather Kistner, but when I started coming here in 1986, I was Heather Gardner. Sounds odd for me to say out loud. It's not until I became a young adult that I began looking back at my UU upbringing. The year was 1986. As I've shared with you before, it was at my mother's encouragement. While she was the primary driver in our home, it was Dad that drove to church. He parked the VW van in the gravel parking lot. At that time, we were down the road. And only a few years ago did I learn that while my brother is 6 years younger than I, when we were already inside, Mom and Dad had been sitting in the car for several times when they first started coming here. Dad was hesitant to come in, but with my mother's patience and ability to be attentive to Dad's slight shyness, we became regulars. This was a time when, attending a public high school, I began to be called names for having minority friends and minority sweethearts. I became sought out to be hounded to become a God-fearing young girl. This was the first thing that I learned, that as being a UU, it is okay to be a minority. When I was among my adult friends as a young person, I was their peer when I was here at Tennessee Valley. When I was welcomed into conversation, the tone remained the same, and the questions just flowed through amongst whomever was standing around. This was the second thing that has helped me propel into what I am now, is that our friends, our children's friends, are of all ages. To be able to include all people around our tables? There's never a kids' table at a UU function. What a gift to not be excluded. One of the most beautiful things about being a Unitarian is that you can ask questions. In fact, we have a class here taught by our wonderful Mark Mahundro, entitled Questions. I recall as a child attending our sex education class, which at that time was not called OWL, having it be a completely safe environment for any and all thoughts, ideas, and perspectives, to having laid a wonderfully strong foundation to build upon equality and acceptance. I took that no boundaries approach to indicate that, yes, I can be me, to love who I want to love, to hold hands with who I want to hold hands with. As we moved into the years of social media and a range of views expressed, it is very encouraging to see our UU community support and stand beside and among our LGBTQ+ friends and unite. It is a true testament to who we are, how I was raised, and what we continue to learn together. As Unitarians here at TVUUC, to welcome all who come to us with acceptance and respect for the differences among us, and to remain open to the richness. So today, as I'm here with my own children, if they are so gifted the opportunity to speak someday, and their topic too is what I learned growing up in TVUUC, the one thing that I know will be a constant is, with their mother's encouragement, that they are here. Thank you.
Let's enter into a time of meditation and prayer. We are grateful to be in the presence of one another. We are grateful for the affirmation that being together in this community brings. Let us have hearts open with humility. Let us find our way mindful that there is an abundance from which we can draw water, the peace of all peace that comes not without struggle or wrestling with the ways of scarcity and individualism in the world. Let us find ways to disrupt injustice. Let us find ways to accept one another while preserving our hearts. Let us go beyond thinking and suspend all judgment. May we be changed and held in love. May we recognize and receive grace, for none of us is alone, and none of us alone has the answer. Let us rest together for a moment of silence. Amen.
Good morning. I'm John McNair. I did have the privilege of growing up in this congregation. When I was asked to give a short talk on what that was like, it reminded me of David Foster Wallace's 2015 commencement talk at Kenyon College, where he started with his anecdote. There are these two young fish swimming along, and they happen to meet an older fish swimming the other way, who nods at them, says, "Morning, boys, how's the water?" Two fish swim on for a bit. Eventually, one of them looks over the other and goes, "What the hell is water?" Unlike many of us, I've never been a recovering other church person, so for me, growing up at TVUUC was just growing up. This is home. I grew up in a rural area in South Knox County, and I remember a neighbor walking past our home on his way to church one Sunday, informing my dad he was going to hell for working on Sunday. He was on the roof enlarging our house to make room for me and my 3 siblings. He and my mom, BJ, were clearly some of the families who discovered UUism as a little defense to raise their kids in a more open-minded environment than you might find in other parts around here. My earliest memory of the old church, of the church itself and the old church building, was a picnic in the backyard of the original diamond-shaped TVUUC building, looking up at that little tiny balcony on the back off the right side of the stage area for what must have been an address by Bob West in the new building. I don't remember going to Unitarian House, although some of these other guys do. So that would have been in the very late 50s, right? I have some other snapshots from my last 60-some years here. Sunday school, the old building had too many doors. If you remember that, the downstairs, there was one for each of the downstairs classrooms, and kids sometimes used them to kind of escape through the woods. Down to Second Creek for some impromptu self-guided nature walks. It was not part of the official curriculum at that time, but I don't know. There was an old mill house down there on the creek with a rotten floor and some concrete abutments for the dam when they would dam it up to make the mill run. One winter, a pair of freezer doors floated down the creek and got hung up on the remains of the dam abutments. So of course we found some poles and would stand on them and pole ourselves up and down the creek. Being able to come here and meet classmates from school was a bonus. Our parents would often let us go to lunch after church with other South Knoxville families, the DeRitters, the Martins, the Inmans, the Cheese, a good crowd. It was kind of a pleasant surprise to find people south of the river that were like-minded. I also remember a cultural study we did about Kenya one year. I still have a wooden burned animal mask that we burned during that out on the back porch of the second diamond building after they added that onto the church. I forgot who it was, probably Tom Innes. There were some people out there with charcoal, and so we were burning holes for eyes in these wood pre-cut things. It's still on the wall in my bathroom at the apartment, at Sherry's deluxe apartment downtown. Sherry doesn't know why, but she lets me hang it there. I also think we were one of the first groups with access to About Your Sexuality coursework, now replaced by Our Whole Lives. So 50 years ago, we were at church learning about, quote, anatomy, gender identity, relationships, sexual intercourse and intimacy, as well as covering sexually transmitted diseases and birth control. Kaz Walker was not amused. It was also a time when I was participating in UFO and then LRY, the middle school and then high school youth groups here. Sunday evenings we'd gather with other middle school, high school kids to socialize, recruited some of our non-UU friends as well, bringing them in our own Volkswagen bus. Where was I? Among the activities, we had planning, hosting, and attending the conferences, regional conferences with other UU congregations. I remember riding down to Frogmore, South Carolina with Jimmy and Bill Benedict, and along the way I got recruited to help plan a next regional con down in Florida, so there was some personal advancement through that too, learning to act more like a grown-up. But then there's music. One of the true joys of the group is the variety and excellence of the music that's available here, the offerings here. I love having this new orchestra that we've got. That's fun. I've participated in the choir, of course, under several directors, performing classical to contemporary to jazz to regional Appalachian music to world music. Also led to other gatherings, including my current work with the Accidentals, for example. There was and is a wide variety of talented church members and friends enriching our Sunday services. The choir was and is a special tribe, people without other real commonalities sometimes coming together regularly to socialize, occasionally commit music. Oh, and my sister Jean. So I've got 3 siblings, and they've all ended up strewn up and down the Atlantic coast of Florida like Flotsam and Jetsam. But my sister Jean responded when I asked her if she had anything. She said, quote, "I liked the peacefulness and inclusiveness. I attended other churches with friends and found them demanding and a little scary. That whole going to hell thing." So what was it like, and what did I learn growing up at UT? Ask me later. I'm still doing that. Thank you. And happy birthday.
I'm Ted Jones, and I was asked to give memories of growing up at TVUUC then, now TVUUC. So a few thoughts and memories. We'll start with the experience that we didn't confer before, but many of our children have today, that having other kids come to me, especially in middle school, giving me speeches about saving my soul. They were generally concerned that I was going to hell because I had not accepted Jesus as my personal Savior. I still get some of those comments even today. Saying that I went to church seemed to shorten those speeches, even though they were still worried about me. It's really nice to be able to say that you have a church when you're a kid, or as an adult for that matter. I did have a problem when at school they would have a school function and they would say, "Wear church clothes." And I said, I have no idea what church clothes are. Still happens as an adult. I remember the crazy building down the street with so many hiding places, and the long ramp down to the RE space. You run down it and you try not to go through the window at the 180-degree turn. I remember especially the bounty of wise adults in the congregation. The Graffs, Ruth and Leroy, really helped me in a number of ways, not the least of which was being attentive to grammar issues. They helped me find the right college. It changed my life. There are 2 events in church history that I would point out as what kind of congregation we had. The first event was the old sign at our old church. The sign used to say, "Future Home of Tennessee Valley Unitarian Church." When the church was built, the word "future" was crossed out, and a fairly tacky temporary sign remained. Minister Bob West asked the board several times to replace the sign, but cost and a need to study the issue further kept winning out. So late one night, in cahoots with Wade Till, Bob West was coming back to church, and in his car, he jumped the curb and ran through the sign with his car, totally demolishing it. The next day, he persuaded the board not to investigate this heinous act of vandalism, forgiveness, and the board quickly approved a new sign. No one knew as our minister who had destroyed the sign till years later. The second event came after Bob West moved on and the church was searching for a new minister. My father, Francis, incoming president, and Wade Till went to the UUA General Assembly in Chicago. They listened to several speakers, and when they heard young Ken McLean talk, they approached him after he was done speaking and began actively recruiting him to come to Knoxville. Now, this is totally against how UUA says new ministers are supposed to be selected. Stalking candidates and outright recruitment is frowned upon. This didn't stop our church representatives, and they succeeded in bringing Ken McLean to Knoxville. My impression of the congregation as a whole, the zeitgeist, was that it was a group of men and women that were there to get things done, to change the world. I've visited other churches over the years, and folks in other congregations are happy to be there, happy to hold hands and be joyous. Tennessee Valley had the feel of being there in order to move forward, to change the world, to accomplish great things, to right wrongs, change unjust systems, usually accompanied by sarcasm and wit, and not always following rules and procedures. My parents divorced after my freshman year in high school. My father got the church, and my mother never returned. To stay neutral, I dropped out of Tennessee Valley and went to Messiah Lutheran, where I got the experience of reciting words I did not believe. But one thing, when I graduated from high school, I got a present. It was from Mary Nelson, RE director. It was a flaming chalice pendant. I was told that even though I had not attended the youth group in the last 3 years, I was still considered a member of the youth class, and I got the same coming-of-age president that all the others did. That gift made me realize I was still a member of the church community, no matter how far I might wander. I still wear a flaming chalice pendant today. Thank you.
Now let us sing together. Happy birthday to us. Happy birthday to us. Happy birthday, TVUUC. Happy birthday to us. And many more.
Good morning. My name is Claudia Presley. I'm the Director of Finance and Operations here. You guys hear me most every Sunday talk about, at this time, we're talking about the organizations or TVUUC itself that we give money to. First of all, let me say thanks for being here to all of you for this 75th year of TVUUC being here. One thing that's new today, you will see offering baskets at the end of the railing there at the choir. They look like this. They're really beautiful. Bob Grimmick donated them to us. Two things, they're really beautiful. They're big, and they can hold a lot of cash and checks. So we would love to have you guys fill those up. Ways you can give, obviously, check, cash, in the basket. You can give through our giving kiosk. If you're online watching the service, there should be a bar or a button. Press that and it will go to a secure giving site. Today's offering is a Generosity Sunday offering, very appropriate for saying thank you for being part of this community. The last way you can give, and this speaks a little bit to what people have said of how TVUUC is a beacon of light in the community. If you want to text give, you can text give to the number 73256 and then type in the letters TVUUC and the amount you would like to give. When I speak to people a lot of times and they ask for addresses, email address or something, they always get hung up on the UU part. And so typically I will say something like Tennessee Valley Unicorn Church. So if you guys are here today, what you found is a unicorn ×2 church where you're accepted the way you are. Thanks for being here.
Good morning. Kate Benson. This is the first time I've been back in the church since before COVID. I'm very happy to be here. I've enjoyed the other memories, and I have a lot of memories myself of the years in this wonderful congregation. Starting back, my history starts back at the Christenberry Junior High School when we were really just beginning. The earliest influences on my spiritual and social development were my parents, Jack and Chris Benson, and from this church. It's hard to separate the impact of these two sources. My parents came to Tennessee from Colorado in the midst of the Depression in the 1930s as single young adults with very few resources out of the University of Colorado in Boulder. Each was drawn to this area by causes and organizations that offered work for the betterment of those most in need. My father grew up in a log cabin in the Rockies, the cabin being built by his Swedish immigrant father. He put himself through college by working construction jobs. His degree in journalism wasn't very useful during those hard times. Breadlines and unemployment were a reality. He applied for work in Tennessee, where the TVA dam building was underway, with construction jobs that he has had gave him the skills he needed for a TVA job, and his writing abilities from being a journalism major shone on his application. At first, TVA didn't know what to do with him, and then they put him into personnel, where he spent his career. It was a perfect fit. My mother left a teaching job in Colorado to come to Mott Eagle, Tennessee, to join Miles and Zilphia Horton as they founded Highlander Folk School, now the Highlander Center. She thrived with these trailblazers for social justice issues. Her work was entirely volunteer-based. These two did find each other. They were also a perfect fit. Close bonding grew between Highlander and TVA folks who shared many common interests. Professional and personal lives often overlapped. This eventually included many who helped start the new Unitarian Church in Knoxville. I was born in 1944 during the construction of the Kentucky Dam. The family moved to Knoxville that year. So I was only 6 months old, but I am a Knoxvillian. Two important milestones occurred in 1949. Our move to a little house in Sequoia Hills. And the Sequoia Hills choice was because they researched schooling and decided that that was going to be the best education for their two children. And the other milestone, of course, in 1949 was the founding of this wonderful congregation. We started in Christenberry Junior High School, which was part of the segregated school system in Knoxville at that time. We were asked to leave when Mr. Person and his family asked if they could join, and of course we welcomed them. We began then our period of wandering in the wilderness, as we fondly called it, because we would meet in various places on Sundays and then be asked to leave when they found out that we were a mixed racial group. We then moved on to the Unitarian House, which we purchased, which is on Clinch Avenue across from Ronald McDonald House. it was at the Unitarian House that I had a lot of my early memories became the closest and fondest for this church. I think because I was obviously maturing. Chris had asked us to say what parts of our experiences meant the most. And for me, I think it was intergenerational activities that we participated in with the other members of the congregation. One of the things that we did regularly was to go to Alcoa to swim in the summer. We didn't have church in the summer because none of our buildings were air conditioned until we came here, as I understand. But we went swimming at the Alcoa pool, which was built for the black community in Alcoa, and for us, it was a wonderful opportunity to play and swim and be with other kids and families from all over, not just UUs. We also had lots of picnics and we had parties. One thing that you should know is that food, capital F-O-O-D, was always a very important part of our gatherings, and I think it still is. I attended the Fellowship Day Camp, which was begun by mostly Unitarians in that time, which was a place for young people to play and just be normal together. The congregation always gave me a strong sense of place as a child. I had a feeling of belonging, which was not always easy in those days. I think John referred to some of that. In school, this was the era of hiding under your desk for bomb drills, wearing dog tags like the soldiers had worn in Korean War. And the dog tags had to be imprinted with your name and your blood type, also religion, as indicated by a P, a C, or a J. Those were your choices. I didn't feel like I fit in any of those. I never considered myself even a Protestant, and I certainly was not a Catholic or Jewish, although I almost joined Temple Bethel in junior high school. That's another story. We built our first real church building, of course, down Kingston Pike in '58. I joined the congregation officially in 1961 when I was a junior at West High School. Was very, very active in the youth groups they've been referred to. I lived for those conferences that were held twice a year throughout our district, which was the entire Southeast. I was the president of the youth of the LRY, the Liberal Religious Youth. I moved away from Knoxville after I graduated from UT in '66. I joined Unitarian Universalist churches in all the other cities I lived in, and returned here to Knoxville 17 years ago. I do have plans to leave Knoxville and go back to New England to be nearer my family. My daughter is here with me today. She's been helping me out. She gets a crown for that. And so I will definitely miss all of my connections here at TVUUC. I'm very close with the Circle of Friends group. We just met recently. I volunteer and I have been in the auctions and the rummage sales, and I've been on the board twice. So just to say that this is always my home church, and it will always remain with me in spirit and in heart. Thank you.
I want to thank Heather, Ted, John, and Kate for sharing stories today. I can't think of a better way to celebrate a birthday than sharing stories. A few years ago, I came across a religious education enrollment form for Kate Benson, where it said she loved ponies. So you never know what's lying around the church. Unlike all the other storytellers today, I did not grow up in the church, but I came here as a young adult in my 20s in the 1980s. And I was only here a few months when I was approached by an elder of blessed memory, Torsti Salo, who came up to me and said, "Chris, have you ever thought about becoming a Unitarian Universalist minister?" And I said, "Torsti, I'm just now getting used to the idea of coming to church." But it has been part of the role of the church to ask probing questions that get me thinking and moving in a different direction. And I think that's what we're called to do, to look in each other's eyes and see the gifts for ministry there and call them out, our shared ministry together. The first event I ever attended was a forum that had the Democratic and Republican candidates for Congress. I was impressed that the church would host something potentially divisive or polarizing that way. And I was more impressed by the questions that members of the congregation asked than I was in either candidate. And too often in democracy, American democracy, it's a rush job to be for somebody or against somebody, or for something or against something. And all too infrequently do we see a group deliberating together, asking thoughtful questions, reflecting not only what is promised, but what might be the unintended effects of those promises. And I think that is one of the reasons this congregation prizes that role of citizen, and why we have developed so many elected leaders, members of the City Council, County Commission, our mayor, people who run for Congress and state legislature and the school board. Now, my first volunteer job in the church was teaching a class called Church Across the Street, which is a wonderful class. And I'd only been teaching for about 6 months when I was approached by Wade Till, of blessed memory, and said, "Chris, have you ever thought about becoming our director of religious education?" And I was in my 20s, and I'd only been here 6 months, so no, I had not thought about becoming a director of religious education. And the interesting thing I learned later is nobody had authorized Wade Till to approach anybody with his job. He wasn't on the board, he wasn't on the RE committee, he wasn't on the search committee, he was just a talent scout, independent talent scout. And I got, so he planted a seed, once again seeing something in me I did not see in myself yet. And I benefited from the mentorship of Tandy Scheffler and Nancy Price and Mary Jo Holden and Betty Schilling, who helped take this kid in his 20s and helped me become an RE director. My first gift, showing that I'm a slower adapter to technology and have been from the beginning, my first gift from the RE committee was a watch. So when I was a RE director for 4 years, I went away to study for the Earlham School of Religion, to study for the ministry. And one of the hardest parts of leaving the position as RE director is the received wisdom from Boston. The received wisdom from our denominational authority was, if you leave a church, you will never go home again. And it was said over and over again. And so I accepted it as truth. And I served congregations in Hopedale Unitarian Universalist in Oxford, Ohio, and the UU Church in Spartanburg. And when this church opened up, I just assumed that you don't go home again. That's what I'd been told. And I went to General Assembly in Nashville and ran into Julie Harden, who pointed at me and said, "You're going to be the next minister of the Tennessee Valley Unitarian Universalist Church." Nobody, of course, had authorized her to say that. But still, I accepted that as received wisdom. After all, Boston said it, it must be true. And then I was at a minister's conference with your interim minister, the Reverend Joan Kahn Schneider. And Joan Kahn Schneider came to me and said, "Chris, are you going to apply to be minister of the church?" And I said, "You know, they say you can't go home again." And Joan Kahn Schneider said, "Why not?" And all I can tell you is I went through all the litany of different concerns that they have about going home again, and she just had another question. For everything I said, she had another question. And if you've ever endured a barrage of questions from the Reverend Joan Kahn Schneider, you know it's quite the treatment. And at the end of that barrage, I decided, why not? Why not put my name in? And here I am today, which just goes to show you Boston isn't always right. We've had a meaningful 23 years together, and we've endured some really hard situations. I began right before the terrorist attacks of September 11th, was plunged into interfaith work here. We had 7 years later an act of domestic terrorism in this sanctuary, and 7 years after that a global pandemic and a lockdown. So I do not control events as a leader. I profess that events have controlled me. Occasionally, I will pull aside a member of that search committee that helped identify me as a candidate for ministry of the church, and I will say to them, it's a good thing none of us knew I wasn't qualified for this job. But no one is qualified for the work of ministry, and we're all called to the work of ministry. We're called to rise to the occasion, to rise to the challenges. I have a friend and minister, Doak Mansfield, who shared this proverb. He said, fear, F-E-A-R, has two meanings. Forget everything and run, or face everything and rise. And all I can say is I'm grateful to have spent the better part of 4 decades with this congregation, and while we made our fair share of mistakes, I've always felt as a whole, we have always been able to face every challenge and rise. Thank you, and happy birthday. Another congregational favorite, hymn 287 in the gray hymnal. I invite anyone who has mobility issues or has small children or any way needs a head start on getting to our special reception to join me as I walk out of the sanctuary during this hymn. Church, the world awaits your liberating ministry. Go forward in the power of love, proclaim the truth that makes us free. To join us for a special reception after the service, but right now, as our last act of worship, I invite you to turn and greet your neighbor.